case, Bible. The International Criminal Court is now in session. The Densel Court Penal International, 8 word. Please be seated.
Thank you very much. Court officer, please call the case.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La situation en République du Kenya, dans l'affaire le procureur contre William Samoei Ruto et Joshua Arabsang, ICC 0109-0111. Nous sommes en audience publique.
Thank you. Appearances.
Good morning, Your Honours. Anton Steinberg for the prosecution. With me this morning, Lucio Garcia, Lara Renton, case manager Grace Go, and it gives me pleasure to introduce our new associate trial lawyer, Melissa Sims, behind me.
Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honours. Orson Singh and James Familia on behalf of victims. Thank you.
Morning, Your Honours. For Mr. Sang is myself, Katwa Keegan, Caroline Busman, Logan Hambrick, Horna Lanham, and Rong Sin. And Mr. Sang is present. Thank you, Your Honours.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
Katwa.
May you please, Mr. President, Your Honours, the Honourable Ruto team is represented by the same set of people, including the addition of Ms. Shamla Araganda, who just joined us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Prosecutor, we thought we'd have a brief chat quickly before the witness is called in, so we know what we're doing with this witness. I take it, Mr. Steinberg, you're going to lead.
That's correct, Your Honours.
We've reviewed your material. Can you give us, in terms of subject matter, discrete subject matter, what you intend to do with this witness?
Yes, certainly, Your Honours. Firstly, perhaps I should inform the Chamber that I had discussions with my learned friends from both defence teams this morning, and they have both indicated that they do not intend to object to the expertise of this witness, so that is admitted and we can skip the voir dire process. Your Honours, what I intend to do with this witness is to take him briefly through firstly the mandate that he received from the prosecution, the steps which he followed to fulfill that mandate in acquiring the necessary data, loading it, analysing it, etc. And then I tend to take him to the 4 reports which he has produced for the prosecution. They are, firstly, a report. Well, perhaps before I do anything more, may I inquire whether Your Honours have been given the binders which we provided this morning? I think they might be on the... There should be 3 binders on the desk in front of you. Is that it? I believe that is in fact it, yes.
All right. I do see 2 bundles.
If Your Honour could, Mr. President, if you could perhaps hand those to your colleagues. It should have several coloured tabs starting blue 1 to a pink 12.
All right. I see what you mean. You provided 3 bundles for each, for the 3 judges.
Yeah,
so
indeed, one each.
One each. Yes. Okay, yes, we have that.
Thank you, Mr. President. The 4 reports I intend to refer to are at tabs 2, 3, 4, and 5. The first is the analysis of satellite imagery for Eldoret. At tab 2, at tab 3, the analysis of satellite imagery for Kiamba Church.
All right, before we get there, what I'm thinking of is the point of the testimony, the points of the testimony in terms of the forensic objective of this witness's testimony.
Very well. Your Honours, The relevance of this witness's evidence in a nutshell, it is relevant to the issues of the widespread and systematic nature of the attacks which the prosecution, or the crimes which the prosecution has alleged. And in particular, this witness will give evidence of large-scale destruction of structures, mainly by burning, particularly in the Greater Eldoret area, and more specifically Huruma, Kimumu, Langas, Yamumbi, and Kiamba, which are all areas covered by specific incidents alleged in the document containing the charges. He will also give evidence, certain evidence indicating removal of population, forced transfer of population, and a small amount of evidence regarding roadblocks and other destructions of vehicles, etc.
All right. When you talk of burnings, we have reviewed the admitted facts or the admissions between the parties. I do not know if you have that document. Filing should be 451, Annex A.
Uh, 643. Yes, I have it.
If you looked at items 100 to 114, 100, for instance, item 100 says houses and businesses were burned in Turbo Town during PEV. 103 says houses were burnt in Kimumu during PEV. 104, houses were burnt in Langas during PEV. 105, houses were burnt in Yamumbi during PEV. 107, houses and businesses were burned in Huruma during PEV. 110, houses were burnt in Kiamba during PEV. 111, homes and businesses were burnt in Kapsabet during the PEV. 114, houses and businesses were burned in Nandi Hills town during the PEV. I do not know whether there are any more, but in light of these admissions of the parties, so these are not in dispute, to what extent do we need this witness to come and testify that there were malicious burning of homes and businesses in the area in question? Malicious.
Your Honours, I submit that the evidence which the witness can bring goes beyond establishing the mere bald fact that a house or houses were burnt in a particular area. The evidence which this witness can provide will, in my submission, provide greater detail and context and nuance to those bald admissions. He will be able to provide evidence of the number of houses burnt, the pattern of the burning of those houses, and to a certain extent the causes of the burning of those houses. In other words, were they caused by runaway fires, were they deliberately set, etc. And in my submission, the evidence before the court, when properly interpreted, will provide support for the prosecution's assertion that there were targeted burning of houses in those regions.
on that last point, is there any dispute from the defense that what happened was arson as opposed to runaway fire?
I'm not aware of that, Your Honours. I would expect probably not. But Your Honours have already heard evidence from several witnesses how particular houses were selected for targeting. And in the prosecution submission, the evidence that which the witness can present will corroborate to an extent those versions, and I think ultimately assist the chamber.
So I ask the defense now, counsel for both Mr. Ruto and Mr. Sang, you've seen the admissions, and I've read those onto the record. Is there any dispute that to the extent that the admissions say that houses were burned, what was admitted was that those were malicious burning of houses? Is there any dispute that the burning was arson, in other words, malice?
Mr. President, there's no dispute that there were indeed burnings and there was arson. What may be in dispute would be the extent of these burnings. Another thing of import is that the admissions are anchored on a wide time frame during the PEV. But we are here to answer to specific charges which are pegged within a particular time frame. And it would be important to determine whether, in fact, the evidence that the prosecution adduces would prove what is contained in the charges, that is, burnings of particular targeted places within a particular time frame. So that is of great significance for us, and we expect to be able to elicit relevant evidence from this witness would go to the heart of that particular issue. Another important thing raised by my learned friend opposite is whether this evidence would support the testimony of witnesses who have appeared before your honors. We think that that is also another important angle from which the evidence of this particular witness could be viewed. So we believe that his testimony would be very important and could assist your honors significantly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, in direct answer to your question, we admit that there were fires and that it was in circumstances of arson. On our part, we leave it to the court as to whether or not the testimony of this witness is relevant in view of the admissions that have been made by the parties.
Mr. Narasetting?
Mr. President, thank you. In our view, the testimony to be elicited by this witness is important. It's important in the sense that this witness will help you to understand the extent and the nature of the harms the victims of this case have suffered personally, and their families as well. That's why, Your Honors, from our point of view, the court should hear this testimony of this witness and analyze his expert testimony in light of the other testimonies provided by the witnesses and also dual stars witness, Your Honor. This is our position. Thank you.
Thank you. And defense, of course, you did not react to Mr. Steinberg's indication on the record that there's agreement from all sides that there is no dispute, rather, as to the qualifications of this particular witness as an expert in the field for which is being tendered or being called.
On our part, Your Honors, we do not contest.
We do not either. Okay.
All right, so that's a helpful discussion. Now, Mr. Steinberg, the issue for the court wasn't at all that the witness may not testify at all. It's just that let us, in light of admissions already made, and in light of evidence given which we know the extent of challenges to certain evidence witnesses gave, let us not approach this witness's testimony as if he is testifying in a vacuum of that sort of material we already have, as if it's a virgin sort of territory for him. Admissions have been made. Let's not go over those, especially not in any great detail. That will needlessly consume time.
Thank you, Your Honours. I'm guided. In circumstances where this witness has already provided 4 detailed reports, I also propose from time to time to lead the witness from those reports, which might save some time. I'm sure if I start approaching any aspects on which there is a dispute, my learned friends will alert me in due course, and I will adjust my modus operandi.
Thank you. We will now call in the witness.
Mr. President, may I just indicate, with your leave, that at some point today I would ask for 5 minutes just to make some submissions about the next session. We don't have clarity as to which witnesses we should be prepared to cross-examine at the moment. We would be greatly assisted by such an indication and clarity, and I would ask for 5 minutes at any point during today to address Your Honours on that matter.
And in your view, that needs to be done today?
Your Honour, really, because our investigations and our preparation needs to start, and we don't know yet which witnesses we have to be prepared for. Finish today.
All right. We'll keep that in mind.
I'm grateful.
Your Honour, on that point, the Chamber is aware that there is a request before it for an ex parte prosecution VWU only status conference at some stage. There are several matters which I need to raise at that status conference, which will rebound upon the availability and the order of the testimony to follow. After the status conference, I will be in a better position, guided by the Chamber, as to what we can convey to the defence in this regard, and what might be the best course of action for the following witnesses. So it might be best if this discussion waits until after that, and then whatever the Chamber's decision is, we can notify the defence accordingly.
Are you able to at least hear Mr. Ken? He's requested 5 minutes, and then when we hear him, so that also will help with focus on what we need to discuss during the status conference.
No objection to that, Your Honour.
Okay. We will bring in the witness. Can you, court officer, administer the solemn declaration for the witness, or the oath, as the case may be?
I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, witness, and welcome to the court. I wish you to feel entirely comfortable in the courtroom. It is your courtroom, as it is ours, so we all own it together. Your testimony is important for our work, and we will need you to kindly follow certain guidelines that will hopefully make it as helpful as we would want it to be. A critical requirement in that regard is the need to listen carefully to the question asked and just respond to that question. I say that because it's particularly an important admonition or reminder to expert witnesses who are experts in their field of competence. There may be a temptation to talk about something that's interesting and exciting perhaps, but may not necessarily be what the questioner is looking for. So it's important for you to kindly listen carefully and just respond to the question. There is also one thing that tends to happen when expert witnesses testify that we will try to avoid, and that is a temptation to lapse into a seminar mode, because expert witnesses are often women and men of great learning who are used to publishing materials and giving seminars. We don't want them to approach their testimony as if they're conducting a seminar at a conference. So it's important again to listen to questions and answer the question and wait for the next one. That is the best strategy to avoid lapsing into a seminar mode. Do not be afraid of silence. It doesn't show on the transcript that there had been silence that beckons the speaker to fill it. It is for the questioner to ask you the question. Just answer it in as concise a manner as possible, using the fewest possible words to answer the question, and then wait for the next one. Experts are called to assist the court to understand complicated matters of science, be it physical science or social sciences, that would take too long for judges or juries in jury trials to understand. So experts are called to come and break it down, make it simple. It's also important to avoid making it more complicated in the effort to make it simple. You know what I mean. So again, simplicity is extremely important in the process. Avoid using language or terminology that are not easily understood by everyone. And if you must use those, you can from time to time, but then explain what they mean, if you must. So those will address, in a nutshell, the general direction of the substance of your testimony. But there is also an important matter of logistics. The team that helps make this record of proceedings, create them rather, court reporters as well, court reporters over there, and interpreters. They're not in the courtroom. Their work is extremely important, because without them we will not be able to have a record of the process. Transcripts will not be created. But as you can see, they're not in the courtroom, so they cannot hear you directly. They only hear you through your headphone and when we use a microphone. And it's important then that only one speaker is speaking at any point in time. So we must avoid overlapping speakers because that crowds the channel and they cannot figure out what's being said. In order to avoid that, we've come up with what we call the 5-second pause rule, meaning between speakers we try to pause for 5 seconds before starting. So you wait for the prosecution to finish the question, and then you pause for 5 seconds, or even a deep breath in and out helps. And then that creates that gap that's needed. So when you start speaking, there is no crowding of the microphone. It may seem as if 5 seconds is too much, but it isn't, because your testimony is also being interpreted into French, and 5 seconds also allows time for the French interpreter to catch up. Right. So with those general advice, we will now begin your testimony. Mr. Steinberg will ask you the questions first in chief, and then the defense lawyers will cross-examine later if they have a need to cross-examine. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Your Honours. Perhaps I missed it, but has the witness been sworn in? Yes, thank you. I should say for the record that the witness has not been given the warnings in terms of Rule 74 and Article 70. In light of the nature of his evidence, I presume that that's not necessary. Good morning, sir. Can you please state your full names for the record?
My name is Lars Bromley.
Mr. Bromley, you'll be pleased to know that your expertise is not in dispute this morning, but I would like to just highlight a few aspects relating to your experience and qualifications. And in that regard, could I ask you to turn...
Before you start, please, 1 second. Defense counsel, the prosecution has had proposed that 66.3 and 74.1 are not necessary for this witness's testimony. You did not dispute that. I take it you...
We have no objection to proceeding as highlighted.
Mr. Keegan-Katwa?
We don't either, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honours. You should have a folder in front of you, a lever arch file, with several tabs in it. If I could ask you to turn to tab number 1, can you confirm that the document there is your latest updated CV, curriculum vitae?
Yes, it is.
And briefly for the record, is it correct that your qualifications, your educational qualifications include a BA at the American University and a master's at the University of Maryland College Park, both in geography, and specifically in the area of remote sensing?
My degree from the University of Maryland was in geography, remote sensing. My degree from American University was in international studies.
Very well. And for the court, what exactly is meant by remote sensing in a nutshell?
Remote sensing is the formal term for using satellites and other sensing devices to record and detect phenomena on the surface of the Earth, or in some other context, just a formal way of measuring something, be it vegetation or water bodies or some other form of land cover.
Thank you. And is it correct your current position is Principal Analyst and Senior Advisor at UNOSAT?
Correct. I believe my formal contract title is Research Advisor at the UN Institute for Training and Research.
And can you tell the Chamber a little bit about UNOSAT? What does UNOSAT do?
UNISAT is the Operational Satellite Applications Program of UNITAR, the UN Institute for Training and Research. We have several different programmatic areas. My specific program area is operational mapping, essentially using satellite imagery and related technologies to monitor and map natural disasters, humanitarian situations, human security, and human rights events. We do this all day, every day, all year at request by UN partner agencies and implementing organizations like NGOs. If there's a disaster or some other humanitarian event or human rights event, we essentially gather and analyze satellite imagery and produce analytical products at the request of other organizations.
And how many such analytical...
Miss, prosecutor, 1 second. The witness, one more thing I should have told you, which I didn't, and that's my fault, is that your pace as well. We also want you to watch your pace. Do not speak too fast. Again, to allow interpreters and court reporters to record what you're saying and capture it accurately. Not too slow either, but just not try and modulate the pace, keeping in mind the need for people to record and interpret what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honours. If I can just add to what His Honour just said, it sometimes helps just to take a break between each sentence so that the reporters can catch up. You spoke of producing analytical products. Mr. Bromley, how many analytical products did you produce during the year 2013 in this field?
To be clear, what I do is I manage a group of about 7 analysts and mappers who do the work, and I also do my own analysis. So as a group, we publicly produced 169 different reports in 2013. These reports were on natural disasters and humanitarian situations. These were the public reports. In addition, we produced probably 40 or 50 what we call UN internal reports, which are not publicly released on our website, but disseminated among a smaller audience of UN and NGO colleagues.
And the work of your colleagues at whom you manage, do you check their work?
Yes, I do. Essentially, every report produced eventually goes through me.
And can you just tell the Chamber some of the human rights disaster areas that you've worked on in the last few years?
It's a relatively long list. I can tell you most recently we work on Central African Republic, South Sudan. Syria has been an ongoing issue for quite some time now. I've also worked on Democratic Republic of Congo and Mali. These have been some work for the ICC and also work for other organizations. In addition, the typhoon that struck the Philippines last year, we worked on that. There's been floods in Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, Cambodia as well, the Pakistan earthquake, going back, that takes us to about October of last year. Back farther than that, it's Sudan, South Sudan, Syria again, Libya was of course a major event for quite some time, Myanmar, and then a great many probably smaller events occurring here and there all over the world. In addition, then there's what we call technology development and research development.
Thank you. I think that will suffice. As regards Sudan, have you published any articles on, or journal articles or papers on that area?
Yes, I did. I did my graduate work using a specific satellite system that detects fires and I published a paper relating those detected fires to violence in Darfur in 2003.
And is this in fact annexed to one of the reports you provided to the court?
Yes, it is.
Your Honours, for the record, I refer to Ken OTP 00920882, and it's at Annex B, page 0900. The title of the report is Relating Violence to MODIS, M-O-D-I-S, Fire Detections in Darfur, Sudan. I don't propose to refer to it in detail at this stage.
And the point of drawing that to the attention of the court, would it be to demonstrate the expertise of this witness?
Your Honours, yes, but more particularly the fact that the MODIS fire detection technique used in this report is also a technique which the witness will speak to during the course of the reports he will discuss. As a final point, I note that you have published several other papers, but more importantly, your working expertise dates back to December 2000, May 1997, I beg your pardon. So we're talking some 19 years of practical experience, correct?
Correct.
Your Honours, I do propose at some stage to EVD this CV. I'm in your Honours' hands. Whether you...
Let's do it now.
Very well. If I can just find my own year-end. I believe the number is Ken OTP 01290011, which is the updated CV of the witness.
Any objections?
No objection.
No objection. Yep.
The CV is admitted as the next in the prosecution exhibit.
Le document KEN-OTP 01290011, document public, se verra attribuer la cote EVD-TOTP 00045.
Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, as I indicated briefly earlier, it may assist the court by just giving you a roadmap of where I intend to go. I intend to start with the mandate this witness received from the OTP, to go through the various steps the witness took to fulfill that mandate, including identifying areas of the mandate he was not able to fulfill, and then proceed to look at one by one the 4 reports he's provided and certain additional material, just so Your Honours know where I'm going.
Mr. President, if it helps, perhaps we could dispense with steps taken to reach his report, because we are not disputing that he's taken the proper steps to arrive at the conclusions that are contained in his report.
We take the same position, Your Honours.
Mr. Steinberg?
Your Honours, I will keep it brief, but I do think it's necessary just to go through a certain structure, otherwise the evidence exists in something of a vacuum. But I will try to move along swiftly in this regard.
All right. Let's see how you do, but please do not take too much time doing that.
And guided by my learned friend's kind indication, I will perhaps just also lead the witness to a certain extent in this regard. Mr. Bromley, is it correct that you received, after some initial discussions, a mandate from the Office of the Prosecutor to acquire and examine satellite imagery and data relating to the post-election violence in Kenya at the end of 2007 and the beginning of 2008?
That is correct.
And is it correct that this mandate is appended as Appendix A to your various reports? And I refer to the first report again, 00920931 at 0947. That's at tab 2. If you turn to Appendix A, you'll see a cover email and a 6-page mandate.
That is correct.
And the mandate request
Correct.
in respect of the first part, Chart A, the alleged incidents, which is what really concerns us today, you were requested to look for data on large gatherings, large movements of vehicles, destructions or burning of buildings, and de-erection of roadblocks, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, Mr. Bromley, in execution of that mandate, what is the first step which you would have taken to acquire the necessary, well, to perform this mandate?
The first step is essentially to map the locations that we were given, which were provided in the mandate. By map them, essentially just determine their latitude and longitude, and then start searching for satellite imagery which was acquired of those locations at the time frame in question.
Thank you. And I see that the OTP provided you with a list of coordinates for the areas of interest, which are described as approximate center coordinates of the locations or neighborhoods of interest. Correct?
Correct.
And were you able to verify those coordinates?
Yes.
Now, as far as the searching for available satellite images and data, can you tell the court what types of data and images you would have looked for?
In the context of this request, what we're really interested in is what's referred to as commercial high-resolution satellite imagery. This is essentially satellite imagery which has enough detail visible where you can see individual buildings and cars and other features of that scale, as opposed to the many other sources of satellite imagery, such as weather data, which would not provide that information.
And besides the high-resolution images, are there any other sources that you examined?
We also looked at. I also looked at the Modus fire detections, which have been mentioned. There were some other possibilities that lower quality satellite imagery might provide us a look at something like large smoke plumes. And also, for this work, we're also interested in cloud cover, specifically knowing when areas were covered by clouds, and we would thus not be able to see them in satellite imagery or see fire detections at those times.
Just time back 1 minute. Witness the term MODIS, that's M-O-D-I-S. Is it an acronym for something? And have you already told us what that is? What it stands for?
Yes, it's an acronym. It stands for Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer.
Don't explain fast now. We just wanted to get on record that it is an acronym. If Mr. Steinberg wants to explain what each of those means, he can ask you.
Your Honours, that will be mainly relevant to the third report, so I don't propose to break the flow, and we can go into some detail, although not too much. I'll spare the court what I had to sit through. Very well. Now, as regards the availability of high-resolution photographs, is it correct that you have also set out in Annex the available data that you were able to acquire in relation to the various areas of interest? And I refer you to Annex B, Appendix B, I beg your pardon. Again, the ERN is 00920931 at page 0954. Do you have that? It's the same report we were looking at. It's at tab 2, the final 3 pages of that report.
Yes, I have it. I think mine has a different number on it.
The number at the page on the left should be 0954, Appendix B, right at the foot of the page.
Yeah, I have 00921398.
And are you at tab 2?
I'm sorry. I'm in tab 3.
So I understand that this has been appended to all 3 or all 4 reports.
Can you repeat the number?
The page number is 0954, the last 4 digits, and what I'm really interested in is the table which appears at 0955 and following. Now, if I read this table correctly, let's turn to the first entry. This relates to Turbo Town, and the period the ODP was interested is on or about the 31st of December 07. And according to the last entry, it says no immediate relevant satellite imagery for this location. IK from 28 November 2005 and WV1 from 13 December 2007. Can you briefly explain that, please?
Yes. First of all, the abbreviations IK stands for the satellite ICONOS. WV1 stands for the satellite Worldview 1. Satellite imagery of this type is not continuously collected all day, every day for every location on Earth. It's essentially collected in little bits and pieces, you can say, for different areas at different times. So if the date of interest is 31 December 2007, the closest image to that date, or the closest 2 images, the one before that was 28 November 2005, collected by the ICONOS satellite. The next one was collected by the Worldview 1 satellite, 13 December 2008.
So that was almost a year after the time of interest, correct?
Correct. And so with discussions with the OTP at the time, we determined that such a long time frame, such a long gap between the date of interest and the date of acquisition made this essentially not relevant to the investigation.
Very well. Do I understand that what you're essentially interested in is a before picture and an after picture surrounding the relevant time frame?
Correct. Depending on the analysis that we do, usually what we're doing is simply comparing 2 images, a before image and an after image, and looking for changes between the 2.
Very well. And then for the following 5 entries for Yamumbi, Kimumu, Langas, Huruma, and Kiamba, you have indicated that relevant imagery was available, and this table indicates that, in fact, you acquired various images in respect of those 5 locations, correct?
That is correct.
And we'll come back to that in due course. And is it also then correct that for the remaining areas of interest, no relevant images were available?
That is correct.
Once the image is acquired, Mr. Bromley, how do you go about then, how did you go about examining and analyzing it to answer the OTP's mandate?
So after the search for the images, there's a purchasing process. We purchase the imagery. We then download it onto our local office network. Then we do a standard image analysis process. We use specialized software, which is called a Geographic Information System, or a GIS, which is widely used and has been for a long time for essentially making maps and looking at satellite imagery. The satellite images that we download are loaded into this GIS system. Our particular type is called ArcMap. We do some processing just to essentially be able to look at the resolution, look at the satellite imagery at its most detailed level and with the full range of colors possible. Then we essentially go through a process of simply comparing the two images together and essentially pan through the entire analysis area at the best resolution possible so that we are seeing all the details in the satellite imagery. We compare the two images to one another, and then we essentially mark any details of interest. In this case, the details of interest were indications of burned and destroyed structures.
Now, using your specialized software platform and the equipment available to you, can you comment on the level of detail you are able to observe versus images which I will show you in due course that are captured in PDF and displayed on a normal Windows operating system and a normal monitor?
So the main differences between what we can see with our specialized software versus what you have in the PDF form, obviously the primary difference is that we can simply zoom in and zoom out of the satellite image. We can take a broad view at the entire area, and then we can zoom down to a specific building or a specific location. We also have the ability to see in what we can think of as an enhanced color range, where we can adjust the contrast and better see certain details, for example, that might be in shadow areas of the image. So we have a little bit more ability to basically play with the image and see different details. What you see in the PDF is a static version of that image. You don't have the ability to zoom in and out. You don't have the ability to essentially alter the color contrasts.
The software you used to give you that greater level of detail or ability to see much closer, it is something you could have put on a laptop, for instance, and come to the courtroom with. I'm not asking you to do it now if you haven't, but I just wanted to know.
Yes, and in fact it is on my laptop here in the court.
Good. Yeah, it will be good to see it. I don't know if Mr. Steinbach was going to that question.
I was not aware of, I wasn't going to that, no. What I was going to say is that the software was also available in the offices of the OTP, where items may be inspected by the parties, and if necessary by the chambers. But one concern I have is that the screen on the laptop versus the screen that we looked, 55-inch high-resolution LED screen, I'm not sure that you're going to get exactly the same, but perhaps the witness can indicate that.
Yes, I think that's for him to explain that. If it is possible to, if it has not been configured already, I don't imagine it has been, because it seems to have been a spontaneous question from the bench. But maybe at some point during the break, Mr. Steinbach, you can look into the possibility of coupling his system to the courtroom system so he can demonstrate to us how he does this thing. It'd be good to see it.
I'll look into that. Thank you, Your Honours.
Can I add one more detail?
Please.
The satellite imagery that we examine, and I apologize, this is where it gets slightly technical, it's not simply a photograph as you would expect from a camera. What these satellites do is they're capturing reflected electromagnetic energy in multiple wavelengths. So another primary difference that we have using our special software versus what you see in the PDF is we are able to access a different wavelength of reflected energy, which is referred to as near-infrared energy, which I can discuss at length if you prefer. But the primary benefit of that extra wavelength of energy is essentially it helps you understand where vegetation is, just due to the properties of how vegetation reflects this energy. So again, as I examine the image using our special software, I can essentially turn on this extra wavelength of energy, which is invisible to the human eye, but is then displayed through the capabilities of the software, which in certain circumstances helps me understand what a vegetated area might be, what its condition might be, etc., etc.
Thank you very much. But can you look at tab 2, if you looked at page 0936, for instance.
Yes.
What I'm trying to get at is, does your machine and its software, is it able to zoom in into these images with greater detail and greater resolution than what we're seeing here?
Generally, when I produce this report, these samples, these are at what we would call full resolution. So zooming in will not give you any further detail than what you see here. You may still zoom in on occasion just to, see a specific area more closely, but you're not seeing any more actual detail by doing that. So these samples are essentially full resolution samples, and these are also all natural color samples. This is what it would look like if you flew over in an airplane, so there's none of the extra wavelength going on here.
You're saying that what we then see at 0936 is as good as you could see with your computer, except if you wanted to do some sort of spectrum analysis and things like that.
Yes, and then I have the ability with the software to essentially change the color stretch to perhaps make some details more clearer, but not fundamentally seeing any more detail.
Mr. Bromley, have you taken into account the resolution of the printer, perhaps, that would have produced this image?
It's true, it would be, we would have to compare what the printer quality is versus what we would see on our high-resolution screens. So yeah, you're probably losing a little bit of quality on the paper version versus the digital version. How much quality, I can't quite say.
Your Honours, perhaps I should also just inform the Court that we have downloaded the files onto our computer, and we will be going through these. We will be calling up these on our computer screens. It seems to me, from what I have observed on this screen and what I've observed previously, that there might be a difference in resolution, but I think that it would certainly be better than the resolution of the printed pictures. So with that, Mr. Bromley, can I ask you then to turn to the beginning of tab 2 and to deal with the first report, that is the analysis of satellite imagery for Eldoret, Kenya, on the 4th of January 2008. Perhaps one or two preliminary questions. The 4 reports that you have produced, can you confirm that these reports emanate from you?
Yes, they are mine.
And under oath today, can you confirm the correctness of the facts and conclusions contained therein, subject to any caveats you might have set out?
Yes, I can. I believe I explained in the reports all the necessary caveats.
Mr. Steinberg, you will be introducing the report, would you not, at the end of, or at some point?
Yes, Your Honours. I propose, guided by Your Honours' earlier instruction, to adduce each report as we finish talking about it.
And the reason I say that, it may, in light of the discussion conducted thus far, especially the references to appendices A and B, it might assist to put in this report now, unless there's any objection, so that there is close proximity with what has been discussed, that is, appendices A and B.
Very well, Your Honours. That seems to be a sensible suggestion. I don't think my learned friends have any objection. They're indicating no. So I ask then that this report at tab 2 be exhibited. The ERN number, once again, KenOTP 00920931, and that file will include both appendices referred to previously.
I noticed the Defence Counsel shook their head, indicating there was no objection. We will then be accepting the reports onto the records. That's the next of the prosecution exhibits.
The court officer document KEN-OTP 00920931, a public document, will be assigned the following number: EVDT OTP 00046.
Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, on reflection, there's one other document I think I'd like to refer to before starting this report. It's contained at tab 6, and no, I beg your pardon, tab 10. And it's an image I intend to call up. I'll have to ask the court management to give me the floor in order to do that. Okay.
Is this also an appendix to the first report?
Your Honours,
introduced?
I see it is entitled Appendix C. Yes, indeed, I believe it is an appendix. Probably, yes, it is an appendix to the first report. That's correct. It deals with Eldoret only. But it is, because of the size of the file, it is separate, submitted separately.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
How do we label this now? Let's do it this way. It will come in. We do not give it a separate exhibit number, do we? Because it is part of the report itself, and the report has appendices A and B, and this is appendix C. So basically completing the first exhibit. So it comes in. That is without separate exhibit number, or do you need to give it a separate exhibit number for any reason?
Your Honours, I think for the technical reason that it is uploaded in eCourt as a separate file might require a separate exhibit number. I have no objection if it's simply given the next number on the exhibit list. Our colleagues from CMS might be best placed to advise on that. I might add, Your Honours, that there's a second version of this which I don't intend to refer to in court. This is what's known as the annotated Atlas of El Doret, which indicates certain destroyed and possibly destroyed buildings. There's another one which is basically just the naked photograph with no annotations on it. The reason why it's necessary is because sometimes the annotations obscure the underlying data, so it's best always to have a clean one as well. So although I won't be referring to it now, I would ask that that also be exhibited. So for that reason, perhaps we could give them separate but sequential exhibit numbers.
All right, well, let's do it that way instead of trying to make it perfect. So we will then be admitting this document now as a separate exhibit, but next in the prosecution exhibit. Now, we have correlated it to, on the record, to the first document, to the report itself. So we will admit this as a next in the prosecution exhibit.
The court officer document KENOTP 0092-1402 public will be given the following number EVD TOTP 00047.
Thank you. And you say there is another version of this. Did you say that?
Microphone, please.
Beg your pardon, I should repeat that. It is the unannotated version of the same document. It's not been printed due to the length. It's some 150 pages. But I ask that it be exhibited as as the next in the sequence, and its ERN number is 0092-1169. It's essentially the same document without the dots and writing on it.
The same number of pages, the only difference being one is marked up, the other one is not.
That is my understanding, Your Honour. Perhaps the witness can just confirm that.
Yes, that's correct.
The defense?
Well, we would have preferred that the material is provided to all the participants, but nonetheless, we have seen them because they've been previously disclosed, so we have no objection.
We do not object, Your Honours.
All right. We will then be admitting that as well onto the record as the next in the prosecution exhibits.
Le document KEN
Document KEN-OTP 0092-1169. A public document will be assigned the following number EVD T OTP 00048.
Thank you, Your Honours. I asked my learned friend then to call up that image. You have to show it to me. Is it being published? Do you have it? All right, and I'm advised that in order to see this image, the computers will have to be put onto PC1.
So you're calling up
Ken OTP 0092-0958, the first page of the annotated Atlas of El Doret at tab 10. Very well, Mr. Witness. Does this represent the extent of the area you examined from the photograph acquired of the 4th of January 2008?
Yes, it does.
And I see the picture is divided into a number of grid sections, numbered A1 all the way down to N14, I believe it is. Correct?
N15.
N15, thank you. And how did you go about then examining this image to analyze or to detect the features you were asked to look for?
So again, when we load it into our GIS software, we're following a process similar to what you see with the grid cells on this screen, and we're essentially just moving from one section of the image to the next, from top to bottom. When we reach the bottom of the column, then we pan the screen over to the right, and we go back all the way up to the top. And we repeat that process until we've examined the entire satellite image. In total, I did a full review of these images twice in that fashion, and then essentially went back and looked at some other areas again and again and again. I guess a primary difference is the scale of the Atlas book is 1 to 3400, which is a little more than twice the scale at what I look at the image when I use my GIS. So I look at it at a scale of 1 to 1500. And so I essentially see a little bit more detail on the GIS than what you see here in the Atlas book. The main reason I didn't produce the Atlas book at the scale of 1 to 1500 is that it then would have been 300 pages and even larger and more difficult to deal with.
And just so we understand how it works, if we scroll to the next page, can you please bring up the next page? One page down. Let's go page down. Yeah. So we're now looking at the second page of this report. This would represent then the top left-hand grid section of the larger image on the first page, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What's the grid number? A1.
A1, Your Honor, is correct. And then if we were to work our way sequentially through all of these pages, we would cover the whole image, which I don't propose to do today. Correct?
Correct.
Very well. I think we can take that image down. Thank you. So turning back to where I wanted to go a moment ago, to tab 2 again of your report. And the first page of the actual report is at 0933. It's marked page 1. I don't propose to go into all the technical details, but is it correct then that you examined and compared the two satellite images detailed in the table acquired from QuickBird, the first being dated 14th of March 2006 and the second 4th of January 2008?
That is correct.
And the resolution, the last entry in that table, panchromatic resolution 0.6 meters, is that regarded as high resolution satellite photography?
Yes, there's really no specific definition of what is high resolution, but as a kind of a term of practice, you would call this either high resolution or very high resolution commercial satellite imagery.
Thank you. Can I ask you to turn over to the next page, figure 1, which is appears to be an aerial photograph of the larger larger area of the Rift Valley, including Uasin Gishu, and there's a red square on that photograph. What does that red square represent? Rectangle, should I say.
Can we pull it up on the screen?
We can, Your Honours. Give us one moment, please. I'm informed it should be on the screen, Your Honours.
It is now on the screen, yes.
The red rectangle slightly offset to the right, what does that represent?
That represents the specific area of the high-resolution QuickBird satellite image that I examined. And just to clarify, the other image on that page is from a different satellite. It's not an aerial photo. It's from the Landsat satellite.
Thank you for that clarification. Now, because that red square is offset, I'd just like to, for the sake of orientation, when we are looking at the satellite image from QuickBird, which we're going to go to in a moment, would it be correct then that true north would not be to the top of those images, but rather to a direction more towards the top left corner?
No, on this one, the true north is to the top. I believe the offset of the image is was determined specifically by the coordinates I was given by the ICC. So when the satellite image covers a much larger area than what we purchased and analyzed, but we have to extract a rectangle from that image during the purchasing process. So that's the reason that it's angled the way it is.
Thank you, Mr. Bromley. My question was, though, not related to the larger image we see on this page before us, which I understand does represent a north-south axis. But if we perhaps just briefly turn to figure 5 at page 0939, I don't think it's necessary to call it up on the screen right yet. It's page 7 of this report, ERN 0939. The red square on figure 5, does that correspond with the red square on figure 1 we've just looked at?
Yes, that is correct. And for figure 5, then I did rotate it essentially to make it fit on the page more easily.
And in fact, if we look at correct me if I'm wrong, the longitude references at the top and bottom of the page, you'll see there's a figure at the top left of 35 degrees, 16 minutes, 0 seconds east. Correct?
Correct.
Where are we now?
Sorry, Your Honours.
Are we back?
We're still on figure 5, Your Honours.
Figure 5, right.
So I've referred to the black script number in the top left-hand corner, 35 degrees, 16 minutes, 0 seconds. And, Mr. Bromley, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the same image, you'll see a corresponding number, 35 degrees, 16 minutes, 0 seconds east, correct?
Correct.
And if one were to draw a straight line between those 2 points, would the axis of that line represent a north-south axis?
Yes.
Thank you. The point of all this is that when I refer to these photographs, I may have to talk about left and right and up and down rather than east, west, north and south as one might normally do on a map. My learned friend draws my attention to the clock, Your Honours. Perhaps this might be an appropriate
Yes, thank you very much. This will be a convenient time to take a morning break. witness, we will take our morning break now, and then we will return at 11:30. Court will rise.
All rise.